February 10th, 2025 Daily Bread. Daniel chapter 3, verse 1 through 18. Key verse 18. Title, We Will Not Serve Your Gods. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 60 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, Nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and peoples of every language fell down and worshiped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, May the king live forever. Your Majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your Majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your Majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your Majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. Daily Bread Message. King Nebuchadnezzar forced his royal officials from greatest to least to bow before a 90-foot image of gold. Otherwise, they would be thrown into a fiery furnace. This is a counterfeit of God's truth, in which all those who refuse to bow before Jesus in this life will be thrown into the fiery lake of hell in the next life. The devil works very hard to plant fear of death in our hearts so that we will compromise and bow before false gods and religions. The world gives into these fears, but we Christians must not shrink back in the face of persecution. Daniel's three friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refused to bow and were brought before the king. He gave them one more chance and planted fear that no God could save them. But they boldly told him that even if they were thrown into the fiery furnace, they trusted that God was more than able to save them. And even if he chose not to, they trusted God and loved God faithfully and would not serve false gods, nor bow before the king's idol. Their faith in God, who is able to save them if he chose, extinguished all the flaming arrows of doubt in the spiritual battle. They believed that nothing could separate them from the love of God. Prayer. Father, I repent my fear of persecution and the spirit of compromise. By faith, I trust in your power and love and will serve you only. One word, I will serve God only.